One who first speak? Sorry, on the list. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Senator Waters.
Thanks, Mr Jordan, and your compatriots for being here today. I've got some questions about a land court case challenging the approval of a particular coal mine in Queensland, which has some relevance in terms of tax implications given the evidence provided in that case about the amount of tax that the company involved, Adani, an Indian conglomerate, will or will not pay. So I'm interested in whether the ATO is following that case or Treasury.
So, my understanding, Senator, is that is well, it's about a prospective mine rather than a mine in development, and indeed I think that taxpayer gave evidence at the corporate tax avoidance inquiry. At this stage, that asset is not actually generating taxable income. We are aware of them, but obviously we'll pay more attention to it when they actually start.
Is this touching on
Sure.
identifying people, and are you comfortable with all this?
Thank you, Senator. I would say maybe I'll go back.
Yeah.
As a general comment, our risk focus will look more at companies which are in a tax-paying phase than companies in a start-up phase.
Sure, and that's fair
Thank you,
enough.
Senator.
But I was just interested in whether the ATO is actually following that court case and the evidence that's been given in it.
Maybe again, I might not answer that on the basis it would give away.
In general
or
terms,
talk
you
about.
can answer what
In general terms, we monitor. In general terms, we monitor things which happen in the press as one of our intelligence sources.
Okay.
Senator Waters,
can you just walk me through what the rules are about what you can and can't disclose? Because I don't think I've asked you many questions before, so I'm keen to know what the parameters are.
Well, I can if you want, but best if you do.
We can't comment on individual taxpayer affairs, so anything that's on the public record, we're able to comment on things that are on the public record.
So this is a public court case?
If it's on the public record, material that's on the public record we'd be able to comment on.
Okay, so this is a court case that's been conducted in public and therefore is in the public domain. So could I ask again whether the ATO has been following that court case?
No, you're asking the ATO to comment about tax affairs of a business that's been in court on another matter.
Yeah, so
It's not been in court with the ATO, and the ATO's results have come out. So, this is a committee which runs fairly much
Sure,
pretty
and I'm
straight
not
up
seeking
and
to be
down.
obstructive. I'm genuinely trying to ascertain useful information to the extent that you're able to assist me.
Look, if I could just say, we utilise a variety of intelligence sources, and things that are published in the media is one of those sources that would, as a matter of course, be looked at.
Okay. In relation to offshore marketing hubs, is that, how do you keep some of the questions earlier obviously established the new guidelines and the parameters that you're operating under. I'm interested in how you form a view as to when to look at a company to check whether they might be offshoring using this offshore marketing hub.
So, Senator, we have in the tax return form, we have a thing called an international dealing schedule, and that provides very detailed information of the level of international dealings of companies in terms of the cross-border transaction out of Australia to somewhere else. That gives us very good information as to the level of related party transactions, whether that's buy-sell, whether that's royalties, whether that's interest. We have a lot of information. Also, with large taxpayers, we generally have a very good relationship with them and a high degree of transparency, so that they, as part of our goal of having a system built on willing participation, we intend and succeed in having very transparent relationships with taxpayers. That provides us information as to the level of dealing and potentially offshoreable profit. We will then work closely with the company and using other intelligence sources to work out whether we agree that the prices being charged cross-border are appropriate for the level of work which is being done offshore, or inappropriate given what we think is the level of work being done offshore. I would reiterate around offshore trading hubs that we are talking in many cases about large numbers, just given the sheer size of the organisations, which might be a relatively small amounts of tax in dispute compared to the size of tax that those companies pay.
Thank you. So in relation to working out what's an appropriate level of interest, for example, Mauritius, I understand, has a tax rate of 3% and no coal ports. And yet, if a company that was proposing to conduct a coal mine operation in Australia were to effectively utilise Mauritius as a halfway house, would that arouse any suspicions of the ATO given the lack of coal interest of that interim country?
Yeah, so in looking at the risk profile, we categorise information not just by the amount of dealings and the price of those dealings, but also the countries that the dealings are with. And obviously, low tax jurisdictions and, in a sense, surprising jurisdictions will trigger risk filters. I would say that we have a very strong controlled foreign company set of rules. We have very strong transfer pricing rules. We have very strong anti-avoidance rules. When we identify a structure which is of high risk, it really comes down to what do they really do in that country, and if they really do something which is valuable, that can be justified. Conversely, we might say in some situations you're over-remunerating for the amount of work which is actually being done in that jurisdiction.
So what measures do you have at your disposal to address the overpayment, if you like, of interest by an Australian-based company to some sort of subsidiary or a related entity in a low-tax jurisdiction?
So if we're looking at interest, so we have transfer pricing, which would go to the rate that is paid on the interest. We have thin capitalisation, which would go to the level of debt. We have our controlled foreign company rules, which look at deferring profits offshore. And overall, we have our general anti-avoidance rule, Part 4A, which is an overarching provision which looks at structures which are entered into predominantly for tax purposes.
How many staff do you have in the section that works on these issues?
5 minutes, Larissa.
So in my group, because international issues happen across the entire tax office, in public groups and international, which is looking at large taxpayers, comment better, we have about 1,300 people across public groups and international. And given the nature of public groups and international and the open economy that we have, I would say that pretty much all our people have an eye on international issues. We would have over 300 people who would specifically look at identifying trends and strategies around international tax issues.
And so on those international, those offshore marketing hubs per se, would that be the 300 or is that a different figure?
Okay, so the trading hubs, generally they will be in the larger segment, so in public groups and international. And so there'll be people across the entire 1,300 looking at those issues, depending on we'll have people in the in my colleague Mr. Conza's group, the 300, who will identify trading hubs as an area that we need to focus on. We'll then have that will then integrate into the teams which have responsibility for individual taxpayers.
Can you give me an estimate of full-time equivalents? I get that it's a little bit of everybody's job, but I'm interested in what your actual workforce dedication is, if you're able to.
I mean, that is very hard, but I would say it is offshore trading hubs is a very significant allocation of resources.
Okay. And how many staff have you lost from that section or from the folk doing that work under the changes in the previous budget as well as the most recent one?
Senator, sorry, I'd have to take the exact number on notice, but I think it's in the order of about 100.
Okay.
But that is a net number, and it's very... We have actually... So I'll go back. Across public groups and international, we might have lost 100, but in fact, the number of people we have allocated to high-level international issues has increased over the last year and has increased both in number and in expertise,
Okay.
and is one of our strategic focuses.
Okay, thank